Welcome to Creepytalks, where hidden fears come alive through chilling horror tales. Dare to listen as every story pulls you deeper into the darkness. Story 1: The Footprints That Shouldn't Exist. Snow had been falling for 3 nights straight in the small mountain town of Ravenhill, a silent, suffocating whiteness, so thick that the roads, homes, and forests looked like they had been erased from the world. 24-year-old Evan loved winter. Until that year, until the snow began whispering. He lived at the edge of the forest, just him and his dog, Harley. It was supposed to be peaceful, but on the 4th night of the snowstorm, just past 1:13 a.m., Harley began growling at the window. Not barking, not whining, growling, low and shaking, like something primal inside him recognized a threat. Evan, half asleep, pushed the blankets off and walked toward the window. The forest outside was silent. No wind, no movement, just endless, blinding white. And then he saw them. Footprints, fresh footprints, starting from the middle of the forest and ending directly under his bedroom window. He froze. The prints were small, child-sized, but the spacing was wrong. Like the legs were too long, or the body too light, or whatever made them didn't walk like a human. Evan whispered, "Who the hell is out there?" Harley backed away from the window, tail tucked, ears flat. Evan grabbed his phone, zoomed in, and tried to trace the prints backward. But there was no backward. The trail didn't lead into the forest. It simply appeared. As if something materialized out of thin air or dropped from the sky. He felt something cold crawl up his spine. The storm only got worse. For the rest of the night, he kept hearing faint sounds. Snow shifting, something dragging, something breathing. At 3:27 a.m., it got worse. A soft knock, not at the door, at the window, the bedroom window. 3 slow taps. Tap, tap, tap. Harley leapt off the bed and hid under the table, whimpering. Evan didn't move. His hands shook. His throat dried. Then he heard it, a child's voice outside, muffled by the glass. "It's cold. Can I come in?" Evan stepped back. The voice repeated a little louder. "Please, I'm freezing." Evan finally forced himself to speak. "Who are you?" The voice paused. For 10 seconds, nothing. Then the child whispered, "I'm lost." But the voice didn't sound lost. It sounded like it was copying the tone humans use when they pretend to be sad. Another tap, slow, intentional. Evan swallowed, walked to the window, and drew the curtain open. Nothing, just the footprints. But now, there were more. A fresh set of prints stood just 2 feet from the wall. Another set 5 feet behind it. And another, and another. Dozens, like several children had gathered silently in the snow while he wasn't looking. Evan stumbled back from the window. What the hell is happening? He grabbed a flashlight, opened the front door slightly, and shined it out into the storm. The snowflakes shimmered in the beam like dust. The forest was still quiet, too quiet. Then he saw them. Figures, thin, long, child-sized, standing motionless between the trees. They weren't huddled or shaking like children in the cold. They were standing perfectly still, watching his house, faces too blurry to see through the storm. Evan slammed the door shut. For the rest of the night, he didn't sleep. By sunrise, the figures were gone. But the footprints remained, a whole circle of them, surrounding his house, like something had been walking around it again and again, and again, trying to find a way inside. The next day, a warning. Evan drove to the only store still open in Ravenhill to tell someone, anyone, what he saw. But when he explained the footprints and the voice, the old store owner, Mr. Lennox, went pale. He didn't laugh. He didn't call Evan crazy. He simply said, "They don't knock unless they've chosen you." Evan blinked. "Chosen me for what?" Mr. Lennox lowered his voice. "You need to leave, son, before the sixth night." "Why the sixth?" The old man didn't answer. He just whispered, "Nothing survives the sixth night." Story 2, the second night, Voices in the White. Evan drove home from the store with Mr. Lennox's warning echoing in his mind. Nothing survives the sixth night. He tried to shake it off. Maybe the old man was just trying to scare him. Maybe the storm was getting to everyone. But when he reached his house, all doubts died, because the snow around his cabin was untouched. All the footprints from last night, gone, wiped clean, too clean. The snow was smooth as silk, perfect and untouched, like nothing had ever walked there, like something had erased them. Evan stepped out of the truck slowly, eyes scanning the tree line. Harley wouldn't even get out. He sat in the seat, trembling, refusing to move. Evan forced him out and rushed inside the house. He locked the door. Then he locked it again. That night, the storm returned, harder, meaner. By 11:40 p.m., the wind had begun howling, not in gusts, in patterns, like a voice trying to form words through the cold. "Whoa! Yo!" Evan tried to convince himself it was just the wind, but Harley didn't believe that. He growled at the door nonstop, pacing like something was approaching from outside. At 12:16 a.m., the power flickered. The lights dimmed, brightened, then dimmed again. The temperature dropped instantly. So fast Evan saw his own breath. That's when the scratching began. Soft at first, like fingers running along the wooden walls. Skrr, skrr, skrr. From the left side of the house, then the right, then the back. Like something was circling him, slowly, patiently. Evan grabbed his flashlight and whispered, "Not again, not again." Harley growled louder. Then, a small shadow passed by the frost-covered window, child-sized. Evan's heart slammed against his ribs. He stepped closer to the window, breath shaking, and wiped a patch of frost with his sleeve. Nothing, just darkness and snow. He backed away. But then, 3 soft knocks hit the glass. Tap, tap, tap. His stomach twisted. He didn't want to look, but he had to. As he slowly turned toward the window, the knocks came again. Tap, tap, tap. This time with a voice. "Ivan!" He froze. That wasn't a child's voice. It wasn't human. It was stretched, like someone was pulling the sound apart before speaking it. "Ivan! Let us in!" Harley barked wildly, teeth bared, fur raised. Evan forced himself to pull the curtain open, and what he saw made him step back so fast he almost fell. A face was pressed against the window, but not a human face, not even close. It was pale, too pale, like snow packed into the shape of a skull. Its eyes were hollow black pits, no whites, no pupils, just empty voids that seemed to swallow the light. Its mouth stretched too wide, as if the skin was cracking open to mimic a smile. The creature didn't blink, didn't breathe, it just stared. Then the mouth moved, jerking unnaturally. "Cold, let us in. We want warmth." Evan stumbled backwards. The creature's head tilted, sharp and unnatural, and suddenly another face appeared beside it. Then another. 3, 4, 5. All pressed against the glass, all smiling too wide, all staring directly at him. The windows began to rattle, not from the wind, from the force of them pressing their hands against it. The glass bent inward, not cracked, bent. Like their hands were heavier and stronger than they looked. Evan grabbed the shotgun from the closet, loaded it with shaking hands, and aimed toward the door and windows. "Get away!" he screamed. The creatures froze. All their heads turned toward him in perfect synchronization. Then they backed away, not stepped, not walked, slid, effortlessly, like they weren't touching the ground. Within seconds, they disappeared into the storm. Evan collapsed to the floor, breath shaking. Harley whimpered and lay beside him, pressing close. For 5 minutes, the house was silent. No wind, no scratching, no voices, just stillness. But then, a single soft whisper came from the fireplace. "Second night." Evan jerked his head toward the sound, flashlight trembling in his hand. No one was there, but the whisper returned, slow, dragged, cold. 4 more nights. Story 3. The Journal in the Basement. Evan didn't sleep after the second night. He sat awake on the living room floor with the shotgun beside him, Harley pressed against his leg, both of them staring at the windows that had almost given in. The whisper from the fireplace kept looping inside his mind. 4 more nights. What did they mean? Why him? Why his house? Morning finally came, but it didn't bring peace. The sun didn't rise normally. It bled through the snow, an orange haze swallowed by white. The storm had stopped for now, but the silence was almost worse. Evan stepped outside with Harley on a leash. The footprints were back, hundreds of them this time, surrounding the house in a thick ring, some small, some longer, some even crawling prints, as if something had dragged itself across the snow on hands and knees. Evan gagged. "What do you want from me?" he whispered into the cold air. There was no answer, but every hair on his body stood up. He felt watched, not from the forest, not from the road, from beneath him. Harley growled toward the house, not outside, inside, toward the basement. Evan's heart dropped. "No, no, don't tell me!" Harley barked sharply, pulling Evan toward the basement door like he wanted him to open it. Evan swallowed hard. He hated that basement. He'd only been down there twice since moving in. Both times it felt wrong. Too cold, too dark, too watched. But now he had no choice. He slowly opened the basement door. A cold wind rushed upward. Not the natural kind. A cold like a mouth breathing out. Harley whined but still stepped forward. Evan turned on the flashlight and descended the wooden steps. Creak, creak, creak. Each step sounded louder than the last. When he reached the bottom, his flashlight caught something he didn't remember seeing before. A wooden chest, old, heavy, covered in frost, from the inside. Evan wiped the frost off and pulled the lid open. Inside were a thick leather-bound journal, a torn wool scarf, a silver key, and a photograph. The photograph made Evan's breath freeze. It showed his house, same cabin, same forest. But the picture was old, black and white, from at least the 1970s. In front of the cabin stood a family, a father, a mother, and a small boy, maybe 8, all smiling, all looking normal, except the boy. His eyes were pitch black, just like the creature at the window. Evan dropped the photo. His heart hammered. His fingers shook as he picked up the journal and opened to the first page. January 4th, 1978. Night 1. They came for my son. Evan's body went cold. He read the next lines. He heard voices in the snow. He said they were calling his name, that they sounded like other children. But they weren't children. Evan's stomach twisted. He flipped to another page. Night 2. They asked to be let in. They used my son's voice. Evan froze. He read further. Night 3. They surrounded the house. They do this to mark the chosen one. Chosen. Mr. Lennox had used the same word. Evan felt his breathing get shallow. He kept reading. Night 4. They tried to break the windows. My wife didn't survive the shock. Evan's hands trembled violently. The next page looked smeared, like something had brushed against it while the ink was still wet. Night 5. They don't knock anymore. They scratch. They whisper. They crawl. Evan's heartbeat thundered in his ears as he reached the final entry. The ink was messy, words written in shaking desperation. Night 6. This is the night they take the chosen. They drag them under the snow. My son is gone. The snow will keep him. The last sentence was carved in deep, dark strokes. Run if you can. They can't follow if you leave before night 6. A sudden noise shattered the silence. Thud. Upstairs. Evan stiffened. Harley barked wildly. Another thud, closer this time, like footsteps moving through the house. Slow steps. Heavy steps. But they weren't walking. They sounded more like something falling forward and dragging itself upright again. Evan turned off the flashlight and held his breath. Then he heard it, a voice right above him on the main floor. Evan! Not outside, not at the window, inside the house. His blood froze. The journal slipped from his hand. The voice dragged on. We found you! Something started moving toward the basement door. The wooden steps creaked, one by one. Creak, creak, creak. Evan grabbed Harley and backed deeper into the basement. The basement door handle rattled. Then, the door began to open. Story 4. The thing that entered the house. The basement door creaked open, slowly, gently, like someone was trying not to scare him, even though the fear was already suffocating his lungs. Evan crouched behind an old metal shelf, pulling Harley close, both of them shaking. He held his breath as the wooden steps groaned under the weight of something coming down. But it wasn't walking, it was dragging, a sound like wet cloth scraping wood, a limb pulling, then falling, dragging again. Shoof, thud, shoof, thud. Harley whimpered softly. Evan covered his mouth with his hand to silence him. The air grew colder, not like winter cold, like death cold. His breath fogged so thick he could barely see past it. A soft chuckle echoed from the darkness near the staircase. Not human, sharp, thin, dry, like bones scraping inside a throat. Then the voice came. Third night. Evan's blood turned to ice. He knew that voice. From the window, from the snow. It had followed him, and now it was inside the house. The creature's shadow appeared on the wall before its body did. At first, the silhouette looked like a child, small, frail, hunched. But as it came down the stairs, the shadow stretched unnaturally tall. Too tall, its limbs bending in ways no living creature should bend. The figure emerged into the faint moonlight leaking through the basement window. Evan clamped both hands over his mouth to stop the scream rising in his throat. It wasn't a child. It wasn't even close. It was pale, but not skin pale. More like packed snow molded into the shape of a body. Its limbs were long and thin, like branches. Its fingers, sharp icicle-like claws that dripped melting frost. But the worst part, its face. Where the eyes should have been, there were only 2 deep black holes, not empty, moving, shifting, swirling like ash inside a storm. And its mouth, split across its face like a jagged crack in ice. It tilted its head toward the ceiling and sniffed the air. Warm, it whispered. Then it sniffed again, this time turning directly toward Evan's hiding spot. You're warm. Evan's heart hammered so loudly he worried the creature could hear it. The thing moved closer, not walking, gliding. The basement temperature dropped further, his breath now falling to the ground like icy particles. Harley whimpered again. The creature stopped. Slowly, its head turned toward the dog. The creature made a low clicking sound with its throat. Not a threat, not a warning. Curiosity. Slowly, its long arm extended, reaching through the dark toward the shelf where Evan and Harley hid. Its fingertips brushed the metal. Ting, ting, ting. The cold metal frosted instantly. Ice spread across the shelf like veins. Evan squeezed Harley tight and held his breath until his chest burned. The creature leaned closer, its face inches from the shelf, black eyes swirling, mouth splitting wider, stretching unnaturally, as if smelling the air around him. Then, a sudden crack echoed from above. A window upstairs shattered. The creature froze. Its head snapped toward the sound. Another crack, another window breaking, then a faint chorus of voices outside. "Let us in! We are cold. We smell warmth." The others. They were back. The creature inside the house hissed, a scraping noise like metal twisting. It moved toward the steps, drawn by the breaking glass and the voices of its own kind. Evan watched as it climbed the steps, its body bending in impossible angles, limbs scraping wood, fingers slicing grooves into the steps. The moment it disappeared upstairs, Evan gasped for air. Harley licked his hand in panic. Evan whispered, "We have to get out. Now." Before he could move, something slid across the basement floor. He flinched hard. The journal. It had been closed before, but now it lay open. On a new page he hadn't reached yet, words were scribbled violently. "If they enter the house, they mark you." Below it, "The chosen cannot hide. They can only run." A fresh line appeared, right in front of him, written by no hand, scratched onto the page. "Run before night 4. Evan stared in horror. The journal wasn't warning him. It was begging him. Above, he heard the creatures whispering to each other. Dozens of them, maybe more. The house creaked under their weight. One voice rose above all others. 4 more hours. Evan's heart dropped. It wasn't 4 more nights. It was 4 hours until night 4 begins, and they were getting closer. Story 5, The Failed Escape. The moment Evan realized the truth, that 4 more hours meant the beginning of night 4, panic punched the air from his lungs. He grabbed Harley and sprinted up the basement steps. The house was freezing, darker than before. Shadows slithered across the walls, moving in directions the light didn't allow. The creatures weren't fully inside yet, but they were at the windows, lifting their faces, pressing their hands against the glass, like children begging for entry. Except these weren't children, and their hands were leaving trails of frost wherever they touched. Evan didn't look at them. He ran to the front door, unlocked it, and shoved his shoulder against the wood. It wouldn't open. He tried again. Nothing. He pulled harder, fingers slipping. The journal had warned him. If they enter the house, they mark you. Maybe they had already marked him. Maybe the house itself had changed. He stepped back, breath shaking. "Then," Harley growled. Evan turned. A creature stood at the end of the hallway. Inside, its long, thin arms dragging against the floor as it tilted its head. Its black swirling eyes locked onto Harley. It smiled, that horrible cracked ice smile, as if deciding which of them to take first. "No, no, no, no," Evan whispered, backing away. The creature stepped forward, but then it stopped. Something outside had caught its attention. A distant howl, a human howl, someone screaming outside in the storm. The creature twisted its head unnaturally toward the sound and hissed. Slowly, it drifted back toward the window and slipped out as if melting into the snow. The moment it left the room, Evan lunged at the door again. Still locked, still refusing. He grabbed the shotgun. If the door wouldn't open, he aimed at the lock. Boom! The blast shook the entire cabin. Wood splintered, metal cracked, and smoke filled the hallway. The door swung open. Cold winter air blasted into the house like a wall. But Evan didn't care. He grabbed Harley's collar. Go! Run! They sprinted outside. The snow was knee-deep, and the storm had thickened again. Winds roaring, flakes slashing like needles. But they kept running, away from the house, away from the voices, away from whatever marked them. As they reached the edge of the woods, Evan heard a sound behind him, a soft, shivering laugh, a childlike giggle. Then, Ivan! He didn't look back. He ran into the forest, branches scraping his coat, boots sinking deep, breath burning. Harley barked wildly, urging him forward. They made it to the small road that led toward the main highway, but the storm was blinding. He could barely see 10 feet ahead. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the snow in front of him. Then another, then another. 3 figures, tall, pale, stretched, blocking the road. Evan stopped dead. Harley growled, hair standing straight. The creatures didn't attack. They just stood there, silent, watching, waiting. Their mouths opened slowly, too wide, too cracked, and in one voice, a voice layered with dozens of others, and they whispered, "You cannot leave, Evan." He staggered back. How do you know my name?" All 3 heads tilted at the exact same angle. "You are the chosen. The snow remembers you." The storm around them grew stronger, swirling harder like a live wind, trapping him in place. Evan's chest heaved with panic. He fired the shotgun. The blast tore through the night. One creature jerked back, a hole blown through its torso, but no blood came out, just snow. Packed, dense snow spilling like sand from a cracked statue. But the creature didn't fall. It straightened itself. The hole in its body filled, regenerated, reformed. Evan took a shaky step back. The creature leaned forward, voice whispering, "Warmth cannot hurt us." Behind Evan, something moved in the storm. Footsteps. Fast. Too fast. He spun. A 4th creature, crawling on all 4s like a starving animal, lunged toward him. He grabbed Harley and rolled into the ditch beside the road. The creature missed by inches, slamming into a tree with bone-snapping force, but its limbs twisted back into place, cracking loudly as it stood. They were surrounding him now. A ring again, just like around the house. Evan scrambled to his feet, breath shaking, heart racing. Then, among the voices, one stood out, a child's voice, clear, soft, right behind his ear. "Don't run, Evan. It's only night 3. Evan screamed and sprinted blindly into the forest, tripping, falling, getting up again. Harley barked as the creatures gave chase, gliding over the snow without sinking. They were toying with him, letting him run, because they knew night 4 was coming, and the chosen never survived night 4. Lights appeared ahead, distant, blurry, faint. A cabin, a house, a fire. Evan ran toward it with everything he had left. Behind him, the creatures whispered as one. 3 hours until night 4. Story 6, night 4. The snow kept. Evan stumbled toward the distant lights, slipping through the snow like his legs were made of water. Harley barked beside him, pulling, urging him to keep moving. Behind them, the creatures glided through the storm, their voices riding the wind. 2 hours. You cannot run. Night 4 is coming. But the lights up ahead grew brighter, closer, real. A cabin. Smoke rising from the metal chimney, a warm yellow glow spilling from the windows, the kind of glow he had seen in his own house before the creatures came. Evan half fell onto the door and banged desperately. "Hello! Anyone! Please!" The door swung open before he finished the last word. A man stood there, tall, rugged, wrapped in a thick fur coat with frost in his beard. He stared at Evan with wide eyes filled not with surprise, but recognition. "You," the man said, "you shouldn't be out here." Evan collapsed inside. The man shut the door instantly, sliding 3 metal bolts across it and dropping a heavy wooden beam. Harley ran in behind him. The man knelt and poured warm water into a metal bowl. "Drink, quickly." Evan gulped air and then the water. He finally managed to speak. They're following me. Those things." The man nodded slowly. "I know. I heard them." "You know what they are?" Evan gasped. The man's jaw tightened. "Yes, I know exactly what they are." He sat across from Evan, eyes cold but steady. "My name is Jonas Hale, and I lived in the cabin before you did." Evan froze. The journal, the entries, the family in the photo. Your family," Jonas nodded once. "The boy in the picture, your son." "My son," Jonas whispered, voice breaking, "was taken by them on night 6, the same way they're trying to take you." Evan's stomach twisted. "You wrote the journal?" "Yes." "Why didn't you warn anyone? Why didn't you burn the house? Destroy it?" Jonas looked down at the floor. "Because once you're marked, you can't escape it, not even by destroying the place." Evan swallowed hard. "What do they want from me?" Jonas looked at him with tired, dead eyes. "They want your warmth, your soul, your life." "They're not human," Evan whispered. Jonas shook his head. "They used to be, long ago. People who froze to death in storms like this one. Bodies never found under the snow." Evan stared in horror. "The snow kept them," Jonas said slowly, "and the cold changed them. Now they exist between worlds, hungry, empty, searching for warmth they can never feel again." Evan felt his throat tighten. "And why do they choose someone?" Jonas's face darkened. "They choose one person each winter, one soul to drag with them, to keep the cycle alive, to replace the oldest among them." Evan felt the blood drain from his face. "Replace?" he whispered. Jonas nodded. "Once every winter, their oldest fades, melts into the snow. A new one must take its place, the chosen." Evan's heartbeat pounded like a hammer. "And this winter, they chose you." Evan grabbed Jonas by the coat. "Help me. Tell me how to stop them." Jonas didn't fight back. Instead, he spoke in a quiet, lifeless tone. "There is only one way to escape being taken. You must survive until sunrise of night 6. "That's 3 more nights," Evan shouted. Jonas didn't flinch. "Yes, I can't survive that long. They're outside right now." Jonas glanced at the window, and that's when Evan heard it. Tap, tap, tap. The creatures at the glass. Slowly, Jonas stood. "You're right," he said softly. "You can't survive 3 more nights." Evan froze. What do you mean?" Jonas's voice dropped. "There is another way, a terrible way, but a way." He turned toward Evan with empty eyes. "They want a replacement, Evan." He took a step closer. Harley growled, sensing danger. Jonas whispered, "That replacement doesn't have to be you." Evan stumbled back. You're going to hand me over?" "No," Jonas said. He raised something from behind the table, a heavy metal poker from the fireplace. "I'm going to kill you quickly. If you die warm, they can't take you." He stepped closer. Blood drained from Evan's face. "They only take the living." Jonas raised the poker. You will thank me in the afterlife. Evan grabbed the shotgun and fired. Boom! Jonas dropped instantly. Harley barked wildly, circling Evan as he panted with shock and horror. Outside, the creatures began shrieking, furious, excited, hungry, their voices layered into one horrifying chant. Night 4, Night 4, begins. The storm exploded around the cabin. The windows frosted white. The door bent inward. Evan backed up, shaking, shotgun empty, Jonas's blood steaming on the wooden floor. Harley whimpered. The creatures whispered, "You killed him? Good. Now there is no other choice." The door cracked. Snow blasted inside. Hands, long, pale, clawed, reached through the opening. Evan screamed,